Hello and welcome. This is Giant Redwood, and you're about to witness powerful machines transforming timber into sawdust through dangerous, thrilling, and challenging processes. Beyond that, you'll see a skilled carpenter crafting stunning masterpieces out of raw wood. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and leave a comment to join us on this incredible journey. Three minutes and 30 seconds. That's how long it takes for the double-shaft wood shredder model HM6420 to turn a pile of dry logs into sawdust as fine as sand. Can you hear it? The sound of two steel shafts spinning in opposite directions, crushing, devouring each massive log. Each rotation is a silent warning. One careless second, and everything could vanish into the sawdust. Fresh wood scent, fine dust hanging in the air. The operator must keep sleeves, hands, hair away from those gnashing gears. 210 seconds. It seems long, but for HM6420, it passes in the blink of an eye. And sometimes, the line between productivity and disaster is as thin as a splinter of wood. Two minutes sounds short, but with a chainsaw, everything can change in the blink of an eye. The sound of steel chain biting into wood, splinters flying through the air. In those 120 seconds, the worker's hands must stay firm, eyes locked on the blade. One small slip, the blade can kick back, and an accident happens in an instant. Deep in the quiet woods, the chainsaw growls like a metal beast, and those 2 minutes are the thin line between the job and the danger. 1 minute and 30 seconds. A large disc table saw starts to roar. The plank glides through the blade sharp as a razor. Each cut is clean and straight, sawdust spraying like a cloud. In those 90 seconds, the worker's hands must hold the wood firm, eyes fixed on the cutting line. One slip. That giant disc blade could swallow a hand whole. The spinning disc hums, like a reminder. This power can slice through wood, but it can just as easily slice through flesh and bone. 1 minute and 30 seconds, quick enough to get the job done, but long enough for any mistake to cost dearly. One minute. A piston log splitter begins its push toward a stubborn block of wood. The piston builds force, splitting the dry fibers apart. The sound of cracking wood echoes like bones snapping in the silent forest. In those 60 seconds, one careless move, and a hand could be pulled into the ram. That pressure is strong enough to crush wood and just as easily crush anything that gets in its way. 1 minute, fast enough to split logs into neat pieces, but long enough for a single mistake to become disaster. One minute and 30 seconds. A brush cutter head paired with a wheel loader charges into thick weeds and tangled undergrowth. The blades spin at high speed. Grass, twigs and thorns slice clean, swept aside as the loader keeps rolling forward. In those 90 seconds, the land is cleared. But hidden dangers emerge too. A single rock buried in the brush can fly out like a bullet. A stray vine wrapped around the cutter could pull everything into that spinning steel. 1 minute and 30 seconds. It sounds quick, but if you drop your guard, an accident could happen in an instant. Two minutes. A shaft-type brush cutter head, combined with a wheel loader, gets to work. Blades spin around the shaft, tearing into thick weeds and tangled bushes. The sound of grass, branches, and dry roots being sliced apart whispers through the forest. In those 120 seconds, the ground slowly reveals itself, but what's hidden inside the brush can suddenly appear. A rock or a tough branch can be thrown out like a bullet by the blades. A stray forest vine, strong enough to wrap the shaft and drag danger right in. 2 minutes, enough to clear a path, but enough for one careless moment to turn into disaster. Two minutes and 30 seconds. An excavator with a tree puller head digs deep into the roots, the sound of steel grinding into soil, tangled roots snapping free. The tree sways, then topples under the machine's force. In those 150 seconds, the operator must keep a steady hand, watching every shift in the earth and roots. One large boulder, one deeply anchored root, could tip the machine or make it lurch dangerously. 2 minutes and 30 seconds are enough to uproot a tree, but just enough for carelessness to turn into disaster. Three minutes. A hydraulic log splitter line combined with a wood saw starts running. Long logs feed into the saw blade. The cut is sharp and clean, sawdust spraying like a dust storm. Then, each cut piece moves to the splitter. The hydraulic piston presses down, splitting the wood into neat, even chunks. In those 180 seconds, the operator must watch not just the spinning blade, but also the logs waiting to be split. One small mistake, A sleeve caught in the conveyor or a misaligned log could turn the whole process into disaster. 3 minutes, enough to prepare a truckload of firewood, but long enough for carelessness to cost you dearly. One minute and 30 seconds. A hydraulic log splitter paired with a splitting axe blade begins pressing down on a block of wood. The hydraulic piston slowly builds force. The dry log cracks apart. The steel axe blade splits the grain cleanly, sawdust scattering. In those 90 seconds, the operator must keep hands, sleeves, and hair away from the blade and the crushing piston. One careless moment, that pressure can turn logs into firewood, and anything in its way into splinters. 1 minute and 30 seconds, it sounds quick. But if you're careless, the price to pay is one no one wants.